Alright, this video will be doing a full transmission service on an Audi S6 or S8 V10. Specifically these models, because their exhaust blocks your ability to take the pan off, so you're going to have to pull these mid pipes to get this pan out. No matter what you do, it will not come out. Up here, there's transmission cooler and an oil cooler. I guess potentially you could take those out, but there's hard lines that don't move and they go up into the engine bay, so I am going to pull the exhaust instead. I do have a best case scenario. There's not really any rust on the underside of this car. It has 162,000 miles, but it was owned in the South where they don't salt the roads, so nothing there. The first thing you're going to have to do, no matter what, is PB Blaster. You're going to have to spray all the exhaust, the penetrating fluid. You have to spray all the exhaust bolts. There's 3 on this flange, 3 on this one. There's 3 that are further back toward me on either side, and then there's 2 that are up here, on there and in here. Those are horrible to get to on this side. This is the on this side, sorry. This is the driver's side, left-hand drive cars. Those are horrible to get to, and it will be very hard to film. And anyways, I've started already. First thing you're going to have to do is drop this metal bar. There's 2 bolts there and 2 back here, and it just comes right off. This is a 16 millimeter or 5/8, and then the next thing I'm gonna do is this unbolts. So there was a little bolt here. It was like a Torx 25, bolts into this, and this is just gonna hang here for now. And I'm sure most of the reason you're here is to try and see these bolts. So this is the hardest one to get to. There's one right there, and then the other one, you're gonna have to get a ratchet or a socket. And I used, it's a 12 millimeter on a swivel socket on an extension, like a 10-inch extension or something like that, and it went all the way to like right there, and that's how I got onto it. So I'm doing this in a driveway, not on a lift like most of the videos, so this is tough. But before you even attempt this job, you will soak all of these bolts in penetrating fluid. If they do not move, I wouldn't try it. You snap one of these bolts, especially a top one or one of those front ones, you're never going to get this off. Up here are the other ones you can see there, and then the other one's kind of behind here. I'm filming this upside down while laying on my back, so bear with me. So those ones aren't too hard to get to. The hard ones are on this side, very difficult to get to, and it's very scary not snapping them. I soaked these in fluid, probably all of these, probably 4 separate days, and then drove the car as well, so they soak in fluid, heat up, and then cool off repeatedly. So I'll show you what to do next. All right, so we're facing the back of the vehicle now. There is exhaust hangers here. They unbolt. That's the only reason I'm doing it. These are 13 millimeters. You're gonna unbolt those and drop them slightly. I'm going to end up probably taking them the whole way off. They're on both sides. There's 2 of them. This bar may need to come off as well, but this is so the exhaust can hang a bit lower, so you can pull the exhaust apart when you undo the mid pipe. All right, so for the back of the car, I have a 10 millimeter ratcheting wrench. These are the 2 back ones I couldn't show earlier, but these are the easiest ones to get to. So I'm going to, these ones are loose. I made sure all of them are loose before I even bothered filming. So these are easy to loosen. There's one here too, and then one up here. And you can get to all of them on both sides with a 12 millimeter ratcheting wrench. I'd highly recommend getting one of these. These front ones here, there's one here. You can loosen one here, and then you can do the same on the other side for the bottom 2. The top ones you're gonna need to use your swivel socket again, so I'll show you what extension I use for that. All right, to get the top bolt on this side, I just have an extension. It's actually, I'm using the same length one, so like a 8-10 extension, and it's on there right now. So it's like that, and there's a swivel socket and a 12 millimeter. I'm sure this is the easiest part for anyone that's attempting this job, but again, if these are rusty, I'd be very careful not snapping them and soaking them in penetrating fluid as much as you can. So that's how to get all of the bolts. One more thing to do, I'm going to use a wire brush and clean the threads, so any dirt, contamination, maybe rust comes off of these. I obviously can't get the top ones up here or the little small ones on the driver's side front, but I'm going to clean as many as I can, try and stop them from getting stuck or hung up, any chance of cross-threading, so I'd recommend you do the same. Alright, so I noticed there's also this metal shield that's behind this hose that's covering the first few bolts on the transmission pan, so I'm going to try and remove that. There is a bolt there, it's like a T27, and then there's another one under here. It's my thumb is on it right now, right there, and I guess retape that afterward. That's transmission harness, but I'm going to try and remove this metal piece that's in front of this cooler. It's right here, in the hopes that I can get those bolts. Alright, so there was those two bolts, and then this is now loose. So, flashlight. So this is now loose, so I can get to the bolts underneath here now. I know you can't see anything, but I can now get into the bolts in here. So I can drop the pan. The plan is to take the exhaust off, or the mid-pipe of the exhaust off here, and then these hard lines down here are blocking the front from just dropping, but it should drop couple inches or so. So the plan is to drop this end down, and it kind of comes this way. So this comes down right here, and then it goes under this right here. Now I should be able to actually take all of this off. There's the bolts here, the bolts over here, and this is the transmission mount. So I'm actually going to replace this. I did buy the transmission mount at the same time, but once these exhaust pipes are out of the way, this should just be able to be lowered. I'll hold up the transmission with the jack right here, and this should all just come straight down. We will also have to remove these bolts here. There's one on either side, and there's one in the middle. So this comes down, mid pipes come out, and we'll see how that goes. All right, so that's the difficult one, right by the O2 sensor that is claimed to not be able to be replaced unless you pull the engine. I don't know where it buckles in, so that's probably right, but that is it. I did actually get the bolt off, the nut off. It's right there, so it is possible. I don't know how I'm going to get it back on. That's a problem for future me. I snaked it right through here in between the O2 sensor and the this downpipe. So, oh yeah, I guess you can see it from there too. So yeah, I got that one off. That's the hardest one. Gonna move on from there. All right, so here we are. We got all of them off. So you can pull it apart now. You can see these move a little bit, but we're gonna pull these off. So you guessed it, it's a different size. This is a 13 millimeter. Of course, had to be slightly different. So 13 millimeters, one here, there's one here. I'm gonna pull those out, and then I'll see if this actually has to be removed. There's a bolt right here too. See if this has to be removed, but I think once these bolts are out, we'll be able to move this. All right, so I got the bolt out of this side, but it looks like you don't have to. This is part of that. So I pushed up on this and pulled the bolt out, but once it comes out of this backing bit, it's free to move. So I don't think there's any point in pulling it out, but we'll see. I did forget to mention I did have one bolt pull the stud. The stud came out too, but it won't matter because when you put it back in, it'll just screw back in. So it's right here. So the stud came out, so then when I put it back in, I'm just gonna thread it back in like that. So no issues there, but that may happen. Hopefully only on bottom ones. Top ones would be difficult to rethread correctly. But yeah, so we're gonna move along. It looks like this can stay here, but again, I'm gonna move along with this one. All right, so forgive me for not showing you action shots, but I have to use both my hands. One to pull this back, the exhaust back, and one to actually push this one forward. So I have no way to hold this. There's nothing for a mount to go on down here. And you just have my hands and the vision of the camera. So this one came out pretty easily. The right one is easier because this bit down here at the part that connects to the header is not as long as the driver's side one. So this one's easier to get out. So I pulled it out first. You can see it didn't matter that the was here or not. So the other one I left in there, just the bolt and everything is still in here just to demonstrate that it didn't matter. So I'll put that one back on. But this pulled out pretty easily. I'm gonna clean up the surface area, of course, before I put it back together, but I'm gonna tape these on so they don't come off and then I don't know which way they went on. I would recommend replacing them, but these ones, I know the exhaust was pulled at some point on this car from the previous owner, so they're not the original ones. If it does leak, of course, I'll replace them. I love doing the same job twice, so that's why I'm not replacing them to start, because I forgot to buy them. You can see I do still have a catalytic converter, which is entertaining. So I'm gonna pull this one off too. So again, I'm gonna pull back on this right here and pull forward on this, but then once they're separate here, you can see I've misaligned them. You're gonna have to pull this direction toward you again because you have to get it off these studs. Top is just gonna pull down, but I think this one's gonna hang here because it looked to me like the O2 sensor that's up here is attached to this downpipe. So we'll see if this actually comes off entirely like this one or if it just hangs here afterward. All right, so I pulled it out. As I guessed, this part did not completely come off. That's because here, let me zoom for you, sir, is attached. You could remove that, but you can't really see where the harness goes. So if you broke it, I'm not sure how you'd replace that. So without dropping the whole transmission, not just the pan. So I'm not going to do that. I'm gonna brace something under this so it's not just hanging by the wire. But if you do want to replace these, I'm going to measure them and I'll let you know. I think they're a 3-inch, but they could be a 2.5. I have no idea, and I couldn't find it online. This car has has very little forum usage. So you can see this one has like kind of a this one's interesting. It like bows inward and outward here, which is weird. And let me take this one off so you can see it. So it kind of bows in and out, which is a little weird. I'm gonna put it right back on. And then this one right here does not do that. Let's zoom back out some. This one right here is just a completely different bracket. So I'm not sure why that is. Maybe they're different sizes, which would make sense, but because this is only a few of the cylinders and this is the other few, and then they join to this larger pipe. So maybe this one's a 2.5 and this is a 3. I'll let you know when I measure them. And if I can find them at the store, which if they're 2.5 and a 3, should be easy to get. I would want to get one that bows like this though, so I know it doesn't stick out too much. These are also metal and multiply is what it looks like. They're pretty crushed, but they do look like they were originally multiply ones, not just a one piece. So I'd recommend replacing them with the same thing. But yeah, that's getting the exhaust off, and I'll move on to the transmission pan next and draining the fluid. All right, so everything's going in the comments too, but this one, so the one right up here, this is a 3-inch. The one in the middle is a 2.5, and the one at the very front, so the one right there, that's a 2. So you need 2 2s, 2 2.5s, and 2 3s. Of course, they made it easy for you, so there you go. All right, next we're gonna drain the transmission pan. It's a hex 5. I'm gonna drain it right here. This hose right here looks like it's in the way, so I'm going to hold that back while I take this out and drain all the transmission fluid. Alright, so that's fluid coming out. It's not too dark, so that's nice. See how much comes out, because we'll need to measure it to make sure that's like the minimum we put back in. Alright, so it's just dripping now. I'm going to put the plug back in so that I can take the pan off without it dripping all over me. It'll probably make a mess regardless when I'm taking the pan down, but these are T27s. I'm going to go the whole way around. There should be 13. I'm going to take them off, and I'm going to leave 2 on the side on this end so that I can drop the pan on this side and drain the rest of the fluid out toward me into the catch pan. And then I'm going to take the last 2 out, and I'll just lower the pan down and toward me. All right, so put the plug back in. I got to the front one, so this right here, this bracket used to be under this hard line, so I've pulled it out from under it. Be careful, there's a bunch of cables. I could probably disconnect it, but I felt like it would never go back together. So I got to the 2 bolts right here, so you can see one in the middle of the screen there. I've just put my finger on it there. So that bolt there, and then there's one over here in the corner, and you can get to both of them with just a socket and a small extension to get there. So I'm going to take all of them out and lower the pan. Alright, so I've pulled all the bolts except there's one down here, and then there's one here and one on the other side, but it's already moving, so you can see, well, maybe you can't see, but you can hear it. When I pull this one out, I'm going to slowly pull those and tip it this way to pour out. But anyways, if I didn't mention it, these are T27 Torx. All of mine came out pretty nicely. And the pan wasn't stuck, so you're not gonna have to pry it off, hopefully, as long as someone didn't put gasket sealer on it at some point. But yeah. All right, so the moment you've all been waiting for, what it looks like on the inside. So the pan came off. That's what it looks like in here. I'm resting it on the drain pan right now, but anyways, this is the inside. It didn't really, when it tilted, it didn't drain more, so I just removed those 2 bolts as well, and I lowered it and then tilted it, and a little bit more fluid came out, so just be aware of that. So next I'm going to take the filter off. I have to disconnect the wiring harness. It's on this side at the back, so I'll show that. And then we're gonna remove the Mechatronic unit, so I'll show that next. Okay, I forgot to video removing the wiring harness, so I put the pan back on so it stopped dripping on me. And to do the wiring harness, this is very hard to show. There's not a lot of room in here, as you can see. Basically, this is what you need to unplug. It will have this knob right here facing that way, so facing the front of the engine, front of the car, and then you're gonna just pull down on it till it's straight up and down, so it's facing the ground, and it'll just pull straight out. So that's how you pull that out, and then you can remove the Mechatronic unit inside as it's no longer connected up here. Alright, so I couldn't figure out, I don't think it actually matters if you unplug it. I couldn't figure out how to remove this one. It's different, but I just wiggled slightly back and forth and this thing came out, the wiring harness. It just wiggle it the whole way along, just back and forth. It comes out pretty easily. Just set that there. So next we're going to remove the bolts. They're T40s, so luckily these bolts are different sizes. So we're gonna remove the T40s. There's 11 of them, so there's 4 right here, and these will be a different length. And then there's another 7 in here. So there's 1 there, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Nope, that's not 1. Okay, so I can't see too well, sorry. 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6, and 7 back there. All right, so there's 4 here and 3 here, and you can't really mess it up because they're different size. So T40s. Remove all of those, and then I'm just gonna lower this down. It'll probably drip more, so I still have the pan here, and then I'm gonna put it in a box. All right, so while my solenoids haven't arrived yet for the rebuilding of the valve body, I'm going to replace the transmission mount. So bought a new one of these, but it's very difficult to, I don't even know if it's possible to replace without removing the exhaust, so you might as well do it now. Basically there's 2 bolts here, 2 bolts there. They are 16 mils. Same on the other side, 2 here, 2 there. These middle ones are 13s. I could get them without a deep socket. And then these middle 2 are 13s. So what you're gonna do is loosen all of those around the outside, all of them around the outside. Then you're gonna loosen, take these ones out. These attach to the body, they go all the way through. And then these 4 13s we're gonna take out, and we're gonna lower the cradle. And then you're gonna have to pull the mount out like over the top. It goes in and slots downwards, so you're gonna have to pull it out. I put the pan back on. Hold the pan up with a block of wood so you distribute the weight evenly, and hold the transmission up because this holds the transmission up. You don't want it to fall. So put a jack under it. All right, so this is it out. You can hold it with one hand. This isn't too heavy, so when you lower it down, I did all the inside ones first and then just held it on by the outside ones and then just slowly let it down. So here's the old mount. Doesn't look too bad, but it's most likely worn out completely. Part of the reason I'm replacing the stuff in my transmission is because I have a second gear clunk where the car clunks really hard in second gear, some harsh shifts. So I'm gonna just replace it while I'm in here. This is the new one. This is what it looks like. Looks about the same. So I'm gonna just put it all back together, put it back in, and then we'll go to the section of rebuilding the valve body. All right, so now we're gonna rebuild the valve body. So this part is optional. If you were just coming for the transmission fluid and the filter change, we're done with that. I'm rebuilding this because I have a second and third gear harsh shift. So I'm going to rebuild this. So we're gonna change the solenoids, which are in here. I bought the new ones here. I'm going to test them with a multimeter before I replace them. I've read that you can get faulty ones. I did buy these. These are specifically from ZF. So going to replace them. Key things to note that you put this is the gear selector back on that peg when you put this back on. So we're gonna take this off first. So this is the Mechatronic unit on top of the valve body. But make sure that goes back on it. I've seen stories where people put it all back together and then they can't shift. So make sure that's there. But we're going to, these are Torx 27s that hold it all together. I'm going to remove the ones that go the whole way through and hold on the Mechatronic, remove that first, and then do the rest. So like this one's going all the way through, that one's going all the way through. There's a few more. So I'm going to take those out, they're Torx 27, and I'm going to remove this whole unit, and then I'm going to start by pulling this apart. All right, so I took the Mechatronic off. Be very careful taking this off. It took me a little while. I wanted to make sure I didn't break anything. This peg was the hardest to get off. As this would slide, and I took out all the bolts, and this would slide, but this wouldn't, mostly because of this peg. So that's this long section right here. So I worked, once I got it up a little bit, I worked the screwdriver under here and I slowly pried up, and then I made sure this was equal as it came up, so I do the same. Anyways, ours doesn't have a clip that holds these on, it just slides out. These just slide straight out, so in our version at least it's like that. So next I'm going to verify each of the solenoids, their part numbers on the front, make sure I have the right kit, and then I'm going to remove these bolts here, pull them out. Alright, so I pulled one of these out just so you can see it. Took the Torxes out of there, and then there was this locking plate, so it has these little pegs that hold in to the top, so you'll have to align them straight. But anyways, I don't know why I have 5 yellows. Most of the pictures I've seen, they have 3 yellow, 3 blue, which is what my new kit came with, 3 yellow, 3 blue. They don't seem to matter, they have the same ohms, so I tested all mine, they're all 5.5. I can't test the black until I pull it out or flip it over, so I'll test that and check it for you. It should be around 10 point something. But anyways, the new sequence, and you'll see it when I put it in, is yellow, blue, blue, black, yellow. So I don't know why it's not like that, but it seems like they're interchangeable. The yellow ends in 960, the blue ends in 959. I'll put the product numbers in the description for you. Anyways, I'm going to pull all of these out. I'm going to pull all the bolts out, and then you just take the top off. Don't flip it over. There are check valves in here, and you'll never figure out where they go again. So you just take this, and you take just the top off. Maybe difficult down here again because there was that peg that goes all the way through. But you just take the top off, and we'll go from there. Alright, so I pulled all the bolts out. They're all the same size. I'll put them in a Ziploc. Key part to have this is the separator plate. It says A052 on one side, B052 on the other. You can see this is the one I have. It says B there, it says A on the other side if I flipped it over. But I'm not going to flip it over because I removed the bolts. You can pry it apart using a screwdriver in these very specific spots. There's a few more around the sides. But I'm going to pull them apart, and then don't flip the bottom part at all. So I'm just going to pull it straight off, and I'm going to set it over there. And then basically I'm going to go through. I bought this zip kit from Sonex for the HP26, which is what we have, the 6 HP26. And basically I'm going to remove these parts. There's instructions. You pull them out like that part there. These ones on the side. There's instructions what to pull out. It comes with a bunch of bags of parts. There's a bunch of videos doing this, so I'm not going to get too in depth on this, but I'm just going to take it apart, clean it up, replace separator plate, and I'm going to put it back together. Alright, so this is a brief look of what it looks like, and there's a check valve here, and there's one right there. So that's more for me, but anyways, this is why you want to replace it. If it delaminates like here and there, you can have leaks in between. You don't want that because the pressure will get all out of control, so there you go. Alright, so I just decided I'd show you real quick. These are little filters, and I'm going to take those out and look at them. So I've wiped down the surface, paper towel in my hand. I'm going to clean these, little filters out. I'm not going to take the little balls out. I took a couple out and I just put them back in. I don't want to lose them. It's not worth it, and they're not going to retain dirt. If there's dirt in there, it would have gone through one of the filters eventually. So there's one there. Just in case someone lost one, I'll just tack this on. The video is already going to be long. There's one there. There's one there. One here. There's one here. One there. One there. One there. One there. And I think there was one down here too. But that's what I can see. There's one right here. There it is. Okay, so that's what I can see from here. Then there's a filter there. There's a filter down here, and then you have the 2 springs. So in case you lost one. But I'm going to now go to the Sonex part. So I'm going to pull these out. There's a little clip there. I'm going to pull that up, pull this out, and I'll show you what the parts look like. But then I'm just going to replace all of them. There's no point. There's tons of videos, like I said before. Anyways, these come out as well. This one looks like it's stuck up, so that might be an issue. That'd be good if that was one of them. The rest look pretty equal.
but that one looks stuck up. So I'm going to go ahead, pull all the pieces out. Again, they're labeled in this diagram in the kit, so if you get the kit, you'll know what parts to pull out. All right, so completely replaced everything in here. All of the side pieces, here's everything in it. Some of these do have some pretty good scoring on them, so you can see there some pretty good scoring, so probably a good idea to replace them. The new ones had O-rings, so it'll seal better. These ones at the bottom down here had caps. I did have one that was completely blown out. I don't know if it was like that initially, but the rest were flat, so that could be an issue. So that was good. I'm replacing that. This peg came out, so remember which one it goes in, that one. So next I'm going to put, I cleaned it as best I can, but I mean, it's never going to be completely dry. So I'm going to put the plate on. And when you put the plate on here, you need to make sure the little valves go into the holes correctly. So hard to do with one hand, so I'm going to get it done. I'm going to put it back together. All right, there you go. They just poke through a little bit right there and right there. All right, so then I'm going to put the top on, and I'm going to snug down all the bolts. It said it was like 8 Newton meters or something. I don't have a torque wrench that goes that low, so I'm just going to put it on, and I'm going to snug them with the 1/4 millimeter. I mean, they're small bolts, is a small ratchet, so just snug, just wrist action. So that's what I'm going to do. All right, so it's back together. This is important for the V10 model. The blue one only goes here. So you can buy the kit that comes with 3 yellows, there's the other yellow, and 3 blues and the black. The black's fine, but the only place the blue will go in. The blue has a thicker lip, so in there, that lip for this one is thicker. So the blue one will go in there. You can see it on video. That one's thicker than that one. So blue will go in that one. It's got a wider base here. It will not go in the other ones. So I've done quite a bit of research, and the different solenoids go to the different clutches. I'll link the article, but this is clutch A, clutch B, clutch C, clutch ABC, and then this one's D and E, and this one goes to other things, and then that one swaps between D and E, and this one is TCC, this one's EPC. So either way, this one's getting replaced. So I am going to replace, I looked it up, and my issue is the clunk from gear 1 to 2 and 2 to 3 sometimes. So that is clutches A, C, and DE. So I'm going to put this one back, the one that I had originally. Clutch B does not come into play until gears 5 and 6. I did not have a problem there. I'm going to put that one back. And then I'm going to put back whichever yellow one at the end. So I'm replacing this one, and that one. So I guess the yellow one that was here. And I've kept them in order, so I'm going to put them back. So the 2 that weren't causing an issue, I'm going to put back. And I don't know which of these 3 were, but I'm just going to replace those 2 and that one. So that's what I'm doing. All right, so I put back 2 of the old ones. I guess when you buy this kit, just buy individual solenoids. I'll link them in the product numbers below. But anyways, these 2 should work fine where they were since there weren't issues before. I did test all of them. They're 5.4 on every single one of these, and this one's 10 point, I think it was 5 for ohms. So I did replace the O-rings on these 2 because the kit came with extra O-rings, so I did replace them. So hopefully that fixes the issue. Regardless, I'm going to put the Mechatronic back on and put this back in the car. Make sure to line up this as we said before.
Alright, so I'm going to put the Mechatronic back in. When I pulled the pan back off, it's been on for a couple days while I got the parts all together. Another quart or 2 drained out, so make sure that's there. I got a quart or 2 more, so I'm probably gonna have to buy another quart or 2. Then make sure when you put in the Mechatronic and valve body and you put this up, this slots into that moving piece that we talked about. This has to slot into the other section right next to that cog so that you can select gears. So put it in. All right, it's all bolted in. This is one of those sections that they make it look very easy in the videos where they have a lift. So that's what I'm talking about, getting that to slot into here so this doesn't move anymore. Doesn't slide around, but that all lined up so your shifter actually does something. And then you have to hold this up with one hand while you hand tighten a couple of these. So anyways, you got 3, 1, 2, 3, and then you got 4 down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you got the 4 across the front right here. So all bolted in. I cleaned the surface where the pan is going to mate up, and then remember to clip this back in. Of course, this looks different than every other transmission for the HP26. It's just Audi things. Plugs in right here. The BMWs plug in over here, and then there's some sort of thing up there for the Land Rovers and Jags. But yeah, there you go. That's bolted in. This thing clicks back onto a couple of the bolts. It does slide a bit, so if it doesn't click back on, you can move it around to get the click. It clicks onto that bolt, and there's like 2 right in here. So that all on. I'll do the pan next.
All right, just remembered filter. Obviously, don't forget the filter. I have my old one here, and it looks like the little rubber grommets come off, so I'm gonna go in there and pull that out. I'm sure this is one of those things where it would have been easier before I put the valve body back in, but I'm gonna use a pick, and I'm gonna get it out. All right, so I've been talking a lot, but this one's worth the tip. So I couldn't get the old filter out, the old ring. Couldn't get it out of there, so I pulled the new one off the new filter. And that took a while. It was really hard to get off. This is a metal with rubber coating. I tried picking this off out of there, but it was just coming apart, and I'm like, I'm gonna ruin this, so I just put the new filter on this. And then as I wiggled it in, I noticed it was moving, and then I wiggled it out, and it pulled the old filter out, the old filter grommet out. So the old filter wouldn't do that, but the new one did, so I'm gonna put the new one back on here and put it in. All right, so the gasket that came with the kit doesn't match up. The bolt holes don't match, of course. It probably matches the BMW or something, so that's useless. So it had the metal gasket on it. I took it off because I was going to replace it, because I've heard this is reusable. Reusable sounds like it's just going to leak to me, so I pulled it off, pulled some of the paint off. So I'm going to RTV a bead around here, clean up the old gasket, put it back on, and then I'll just put it back up, because the top didn't leak. It came off nicely. I don't know, maybe I'll RTV both sides. Who knows? We'll see. All right, in the forums they just said replace the filter, right? These look the same, right? Well, they're not. So this is what they say fits the S6, but it doesn't. So I have to put the old filter back in. It's like a 1-month shipping to get the correct one. There's the part number. I will list it in the description for you. But anyways, this is what Wix says fits it. This is what RockAuto and everyone sells. It's too long. This is too long, and this is actually, the base is about 1 inch wider than this one. But I didn't know till I tried to put it on. This is about 1.5 inches too tall. So the pan can't go on. I put it in, got everything ready, put everything together. Anyways, putting the old one back in. Luckily it was clean. I left it with all the other stuff. I didn't throw it in the trash. Put the old filter back in, or make sure you have the correct one. Don't just buy what they say. Make sure the part number is correct. I can't believe no one in any of the forums or anything said that. They just say replace the filter like there's no issue. So old filter, pan back together, then fill it with fluid.
All right, so now we're gonna fill the transmission. So you take off this bolt here. That is an 8mm hex, and I'm gonna pump fluid in there. If the correct procedure is to fill it up from here, that's a 17mm hex, but I don't have that, so I'm gonna buy it tomorrow if I need to fill more fluid. But 5.5 quarts came out to begin with, and then 2.5 drained over the next 2 days while I had it apart. So a total of around 8 quarts came out. So I have this fluid here, Liquimoly ATF 1800. I read good stuff online about it, so I'm gonna pump that in. I have 18 liters of it, so I would assume about 5.5 goes in, and then I'm gonna have to row through the gears, get the transmission to a certain temperature in order to pump some more in. Alright, so I pumped it in there. I got about 4 quarts in before it started draining out, so you gotta cycle the engine and everything, so I'm gonna have to put the exhaust back together. I'm not going to take the exhaust back apart to get that back off, so I'll probably go buy a 17 hex to take that off and pump more in tomorrow. But tonight I'm gonna put the rest of the car back together. So I bought 2.5 inch exhaust gaskets for the front. I'm gonna put that bracket back on. I'm gonna put the passenger side exhaust back together first because it won't be as bad. And where you can see the downpipe is right there, I'm gonna put these on first on there. And who knows for this side, we'll see when we get there. All right, so everything's back on, got it all back on last night. I still have this bracket to put back, but you can see you can no longer fill from this side hole. So I went this morning and bought a 17 hex. So that's what that is. I'm going to open this and pump more in. The procedure next is to open this and pump fluid in until it starts to drain out, then close the plug. And it says on it, heat the engine or the transmission fluid 30 to 50 Celsius or 86 to 122 Fahrenheit. I have my computer hookup, I have VCDS, I'm gonna plug it in, see the temperature. What you're gonna do is fill it, screw it back in, start the engine, row through the gears, like 5 seconds per gear, and wait till the temperature gets up, and then pump more fluid in, and when it starts to leak out, seal it, let the engine cool off, do the procedure again, put more in until at 30 to 50, it automatically starts dripping no matter what you do, and then it's full. So I'll show you how to clear it in VCDS and how to do the temperature, but if you don't have that, I would assume it'd be fine to get like a temperature gauge with a laser and just do that and check the temperature of the pan and go from there. But this is basically the end of the video. All right, to get the temperature, go to it says VCDS, go to auto transmission, and then we're gonna go to measuring blocks, and then it's 005. Oh, maybe it's 4. It's 4. Okay, so currently 10 Celsius, that's how it measures it. So we want it between 30 and 50 before we reopen that. So I'm gonna start the car, I'm gonna row through the gears, I'm gonna let that warm up to probably about 32, and then I'm gonna take the cap back out and pump more fluid in. All right, last clip. What you're gonna do to reset your TCM in this car is you're going to put your foot flat to the floor on the gas, press the start engine button, wait about 30 seconds, and then after 30 seconds, you're gonna turn the car off and then take your foot off the gas and then wait about 5 minutes, and then you're good to drive. And drive carefully, drive slowly, get it up to like 30 miles an hour, slow down, get it to shift through all the gears, and then drive normally after that, and your car will have reset the TCM. All right, so it's hard to tell in the video, but it's been about a month, and I've done about 1,700 miles at a road trip. So most of these miles were on the highway, but there were no leaks. So didn't leak at all, so that means reusing the old metal transmission pan gasket and then putting gasket maker under it, so between the pan and the gasket, that sealed great. There were absolutely no leaks, exhaust didn't leak. I did have the gaskets in case they did and they had to be replaced, but no leaks. So my clunks are completely gone. The downshift from 3 to 2 and 2 to 1, completely gone. So those must have been a solenoid or in the valve body, and I replaced all of the pieces that caused that. And as it's been relearning, the clunks to begin with on upshifts were a bit rough, but they've gotten better as the car is learning. So I'd say this was a great success. Would recommend doing it. Thanks for watching.